Welcome to Wisdom Wednesday. This is the very first episode of the Wisdom Wednesday. I guess I'm going to have to get used to saying that. The Wisdom Wednesday edition of the Alter Your Health podcast, which I guess I haven't said this in a while either, is your source of inspiration and information to support you in achieving your health goals or something like that. making your life healthier, and we're making the world healthier because let's face it, the world needs some love as well. But it all starts with each individual. So this is a little experiment of the Wisdom Wednesday, a little teaser of what's to come in these episodes. If you're familiar with the Alter Your Health podcast, if you've listened to some episodes before, which I'm assuming you have, you know that we've got our Medicinal Monday segment on, you guessed it, Mondays. And Wisdom Wednesday is our newest segment on, you guessed it, Wednesdays. So we do stream these live from our Facebook group, which is entitled Plant-Based and Stress-Free. You're invited to join if you're not already in there. And we've been focused on a lot of plant-based stuff. And personally, we do our best moment to moment to focus on the stress-free stuff, but we need to weave it all together. We really feel like we do. So that brings us to Wisdom Wednesday.
Yes. And so, it's so funny because as we were getting set up for this Wisdom Wednesday, we realized that our camera wasn't working.
Well, not only was our camera not working, our camera was broken.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about like some little like thing. I'm talking about like a $600 camera that we bought about a year and a half ago. And I guess in the grand scheme of things, like there's multi-$1,000 cameras, right? So maybe you're thinking like, oh, it's just a $600 camera, and it's honestly not broken, but the HDMI input, when we just use it as our webcam, it's kind of like a little overkill. But any case, we've got the $600 camera that no longer serves its purpose for us. So that left us a little frantic.
Well, I just think it's so actually perfect that this happened right before our very first Wisdom Wednesday call, because there you go, life giving you an opportunity to really understand where the feeling of stress comes from.
When doesn't life give us that opportunity? That is all that life does for us, is give us the opportunity to remember who we truly are and where our human experience ultimately comes from, which is not from broken cameras, but from how we respond and perceive and think about the broken cameras. And if you saw me 5.5, 6 minutes ago, it would have been and that's just the reality of my experience in that moment. But in this moment, let's face it, got some perspective already. We always do. We always gain peace. We always gain wisdom. We always gain insight. And it never comes when we, quote unquote, so-called want it, or when our, quote unquote, ego, which I don't really like the term or word, but that's, not our authentic version of our truest, highest self, but like the personality of who thinks they're in control. It never, like the answers, the wisdom, the insight, the peace, the love, the good feelings, the good vibes never come, or not always. They don't always come when we want them. And they certainly don't come when we try and force them into existence. In fact, you've probably had the experience of trying to do so, and you just kind of feel further from what you really want to feel. So in any case, the waves have passed and the camera has broken, and we're still alive to talk about it on the first episode of Wisdom Wednesday.
Yes, we are. Yes.
Did you have something to say?
Well, you have something you want to say.
I just wanted to kind of set the stage for what these episodes, what our intention is for hosting these Wisdom Wednesday segments. And it is to support us. It's honestly for us. We don't care about you. Uh, that's not true, not entirely. But I care more about me than anyone, even Dr. Susanna. But the more I care about me, the more I'm able to be there for Dr. Susanna, the more I'm able to be there for you. So your selfishness is the most selfless thing that you can do. So that's why we're doing this selfishly. And hopefully it supports you in being selfish for yourself as well. And obviously, what that means is just really taking care of yourself and understanding where your experience comes from so that you feel more empowered in your moment to moment life, so that you have the understanding to ride the inevitable waves, broken cameras and all, that have to do with your experience of life.
Yes. Yes, and we named the Facebook group the Plant-Based and Stress-Free Facebook group. It's a little bit of a misnomer because actually our goal here is not to have completely 100% stress-free lives. But really,
is that
even possible?
You tell me in the comments. Is it possible to have
Is
a
it
stress-free
possible?
life?
Is it possible? But how does it sound? How does it sound to, understand where the human experience comes from so that we don't get thrown, we don't get totally overwhelmed when life does present us with challenges we have to face?
The way I see it is that with an understanding of where life comes from, it kind of softens the edges so that we're not as prone to getting snagged on the barbed wires of life. And we just kind of, maybe it scratches us. Maybe we do get snagged, but it's not going to hold us up because we're resilient, innately resilient. And so maybe we'll just kind of talk about some of the themes that are important to cover in our that we're going to be covering in these Wisdom Wednesday segments. The other intention that I have is to keep them short and sweet, because you already have the experience and understanding that Dr. Ben here definitely knows how to ramble, even though I am the quiet one. Whenever we're live, I'm not.
He makes up for it when we're live. That's for sure.
So your wisdom, not your wisdom. There's no one who owns wisdom. Wisdom is innate. Wisdom is in us all. Wisdom is not accumulated over life, over X years of life. In fact, babies, infants, probably were aware more so of the innate wisdom in those creatures than anyone, because they are truly connected and experiencing and expressing that connection of moment to moment presence in life, throwing a fit in one moment, letting it go in another, eating, pooping, fully present. And then life happens and we start kind of
thinking.
We start thinking. And what's the quote? That thinking.
I don't know what the quote is.
The quote, something about that doesn't have to do with thinking, but we do think a lot, and our thought capacity, our intellectual capacity, is a total blessing. And we live in a society that really encourages more and more thinking, but really, and we're not suggesting that you stop thinking, because that's impossible. But we are inviting you to put your thinking on the back burner, understanding and trusting that the thought realm and your intellect isn't going to go anywhere. It's going to run just fine and dandy. And maybe start opening up to living life from a deeper place of knowing, otherwise maybe experienced as wisdom, being guided, being lived in life rather than living or managing our life. We're being lived. And we feel more supported in doing so. We trust the universe has got us. It always does. We in my experience at least, we survive. I have survived 100% of my thinking episodes and broken cameras.
Yeah. So, when we start thinking more in life, using our computer, our brain up here more,
Yeah.
and start thinking, a few things happen. One is that, we experience immense joy and we learn things and it's so cool. We're using our brain to do really cool things. And another thing that happens is that we can also start to create a little bit of suffering, a little bit of perceived stress.
Mm-hmm.
And, just to bring it back to a real tangible example that we just had a few minutes ago with this broken camera. Someone could ask Ben, "Hey Ben, how was your day?" And you'd say, you could say,
"It sucked that I broke a camera."
Yeah, it sucked because my camera's broken. So in that scenario, it seems like really the broken camera is the source of Ben's stress. But actually, the truth is that the source of Ben's stress.
What stress?
The source of one's stress comes from nowhere other than our thoughts about the scenario that's happening. And so, when we start thinking, oh my gosh, this camera's broken, that means we need to buy another one. That means, oh my gosh, we've got our whole food plant-based challenge next week.
We do.
We need our camera. Blah, blah, blah. If we start going down this rabbit hole of anxious, angry, frustrated thoughts, that translates to what we feel in the present moment. That creates the experience of anger, frustration, anxiety.
And what I hear you saying, Dr. Susanna, or I didn't hear you say this, but what I'm going to say is that we're not suggesting that you don't feel those things. We're not, because once again, not that I'm a perfect specimen, but 12 minutes ago, I was suffering, stressed, angry. I wanted to take the broken camera and chuck it through the window and break not only the camera, but the window and, whatever else it might fall into. But I didn't do that. Even though I have done those kind of things in the past, I've broken a lot of shit in my day. I've made a lot of messes. And that's okay. We're not suggesting that you don't break stuff. We're not suggesting that you don't get upset. We're not suggesting or even don't even go there, that we shouldn't feel any way other than the way that we're feeling. That's the whole point. We've got our feelings and they're meant to be felt. We feel them. But I love to use an example that I've experienced just because I know it better than any other, that the old Ben, who was equally or more so frustrated and angry, would get frustrated and angry and have an episode that would last for 5 seconds to 5 hours, something like that. And then the old Ben would have a frustration and anger hangover that would last for another 5 hours to 5 days, maybe even 5 weeks. It would really linger, and I would be dragging myself through uncomfortable thoughts when I didn't need to. I could be present in my life. I could be present in reality rather than being present in my uncomfortable, angry thoughts that weren't even associated with anything in the present moment. It was just just worrying, or not worrying, because we worry about the future, but we grieve and mourn the past.
We judge
the past. In any case, what else do we want to cover in our first episode of Wisdom Wednesday?
Well, just tagging off of what you just said and this beautiful comment here that I'm going to read from a Facebook user who I can't see your name, I'm sorry, but it says, my mind says stress-free is where I need to be. My spirit says go with the flow. And one of the things that we're going to be kind of, pointing the discussion to in these calls is that we all experience what's called our psychological weather patterns. Some days might be sunny and clear and we're just like good vibes all day long. Whereas, sometimes there might be an angry thunderhead that rolls in, or an anxious cumulus cloud that flows by, and while we can judge and complain about the weather, whether it's raining or whether it's windy, we can complain. The truth is that, these weather patterns, they're 100% natural. They are 100% impermanent. They always change. They always shift. They always flow on by. And when we start to really trust that in ourselves, we realize that, we don't need to judge. We don't need to judge ourselves for feeling a certain way. And when we don't judge ourselves for feeling a certain way, that feeling actually happens to just dissolve much more quickly on its own. And we come back to our peace.
So can we kind of start wrapping up? Because our intention is to, once again, keep these short and sweet. And really, if there was like a total goal to really focus on here in Wisdom Wednesday, it's to, once again, support ourselves first, because we don't care about you as much. To support ourselves first and to support you, because we're all one, right? But to support ourselves and to support you in being okay with being human, being okay with everything associated with the human experience. In other words, normalizing the human experience, because oftentimes we look out in the world, whether it's on a movie or Instagram feed or Facebook post or whatever, or, just a friend speaking this or sharing that. And we create the story of what things should be like in life. And then we hold these expectations for ourselves to somehow feel some way other than the way that we actually truly feel. And then that distance between the way that we truly feel with the way that we want to feel is suffering. That distance is equal to the amount that we suffer. So what if we eliminate that distance? And in doing so, we simply are present in life with the feeling. And like you beautifully said, Dr. Susanna, in that presence, the feeling just dissipates. So that's a good way to live. And of course, cameras are going to fall over and break, and then we're going to feel some way that we don't want to feel, but we feel it. And we allow ourselves the dignity of our process, whatever that looks like. And then we step into the next moment of our life with full presence as well.
Well said.
So that's Wisdom Wednesday, episode number 1 with Broken Camera Edition. We'll see what life throws at us to talk about next week on Wisdom Wednesday. Your homework, if you choose to accept it, is to be present in your life and to share your authentic self with yourself and someone else.
All right.
Yeah. And just another plug announcement that we brought up unintentionally. We are hosting a non-wisdom focused event, but everything is wisdom focused. Truly, in the Plant-Based and Stress-Free Facebook group next week, starting on Monday, June 7th. It's a whole food plant-based challenge for those of you wanting to take your nutrition to the next level to support your physical health. It's the Energy Upgrade edition, really focused on what it looks like to support your body in creating and optimizing energy levels and breaking through all of the symptoms that you might be experiencing, because let's face it, energy is required on the most basic sense for healing of the body and for staying awake and for running and for completing your triathlon. So we're going to be energized throughout next challenge.
Yes, and we'll be posting the link to where you can learn more and sign up in the notes after this live stream.
Cool.
So you can check it out and join us on Monday.
Peace and love, you guys.
Bye, everyone.
We look forward to seeing you next time.